The warning lights flashed red across the command center on Mars Station. Captain Day stared at the screen in front of him, watching 6 massive alien ships drop out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built, at least anything the public knew about. His hands gripped the edge of the console as he tried to keep his breathing steady. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," Day said to his communications officer, "and activate Protocol Black." The young officer next to him went pale. Protocol Black was something they drilled for but never expected to actually use. It meant humanity was facing an extinction-level threat. It meant it was time to wake up the secret that had been sleeping near Neptune for the past 15 years. The alien transmission came through moments later. The translation software worked quickly, turning strange clicking sounds into words that appeared on the screen. Day read them twice, hoping he had misunderstood. "Primitive species of the 3rd planet. You will submit to the Valthian Empire immediately. Prepare to receive our delegation. Resistance will result in the elimination of your species. You have 6 of your hours to respond with total surrender." Day felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Anger would not help them now. "Send a response," he told his officer. "Tell them we need time to consult with our leadership. Buy us as much time as possible." Far away from Mars, deep in the cold darkness beyond Neptune, Engineer Hannah was having a normal day at work. Normal for her meant floating in zero gravity inside the largest construction facility humans had ever built. The Neptune shipyard stretched for dozens of kilometers, hidden in the shadow of the ice giant where no curious eyes from Earth would spot it. Hannah was checking the power connections on Section 7 when the alarm began to sound. It was not the normal alarm for shift changes or equipment problems. This was the emergency signal, the one that meant everything they had worked on for 15 years was about to be needed. "All personnel to stations," a voice announced over the intercom. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Begin activation sequence immediately." Hannah pushed herself toward the nearest corridor, her heart pounding. She had always known this day might come, but she had secretly hoped it never would. She passed other engineers and technicians, all moving with the same urgent purpose. They had trained for this moment countless times. She reached her station in the main control room and strapped herself into her seat. Around her, hundreds of other people were doing the same. Chief Engineer Juan was already there, his face serious but calm. "Listen up, everyone," Juan said, his voice carrying through the room. "We just got word that an alien fleet has entered our solar system and demanded our surrender. Earth Command has activated us. We are going to show these visitors what humans can do when we work together." Hannah felt a strange mix of fear and pride. She looked through the massive window that showed their creation. The EDF Titan hung in space like a sleeping giant. It was 12 kilometers long, covered in armor plating that looked almost like scales. Weapon systems lined its hull like the spines on some ancient creature. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "Beginning power-up sequence," Juan announced. "Estimated time to full operational status is 6 hours. Let's make sure everything works perfectly." Back on Mars Station, Day was playing a dangerous game of buying time. He had sent 3 different messages to the alien fleet, each one polite but vague. The Valthian commander, someone named Lixtar, was getting impatient. Day could tell from the increasingly angry tone of the messages. Lieutenant J, who worked in the Lunar Command Center near Earth's moon, was coordinating the delaying tactics. He sent updates to Day every few minutes. "The Valthian are moving closer," Jay reported. "They are approaching Mars orbit. I think they are tired of waiting." Day nodded even though Jay could not see him. "Keep sending diplomatic messages. Tell them our leaders are gathering from different locations. Tell them anything that sounds believable." Yuna, the communications specialist working with Jay, was creative with her messages. She invented complicated human political procedures that needed to be followed. She described fictional councils and committees that had to vote on the surrender. Each message bought them a few more precious minutes. But the Valthian were not patient creatures. Commander Lixtar decided to send a message that humans could not ignore. He ordered his weapons officer to fire on one of the Earth satellites, a communications relay that orbited between Earth and Mars. The satellite exploded in a bright flash. Debris scattered in all directions. On Earth, millions of people lost their internet and phone connections in an instant. The message was clear: surrender now or face worse. Day watched the explosion on his screen and felt his jaw tighten. These aliens had just made a big mistake. They thought they were dealing with a weak species. primitives who would panic and give up. They had no idea what was coming for them. "How long until the Titan is ready?" Day asked. The response came back quickly. 4 hours and 20 minutes, sir." "Tell them to hurry," Day said quietly. Then he opened a channel to the Valthian fleet. "Commander Lixtar, you have just committed an act of war against Earth. This was unwise." Lixtar's response came with what sounded like laughter. "War? You cannot make war against us, primitive. You have nothing that can challenge even one of our ships. Submit now or we will demonstrate our power on your cities." Day allowed himself a small smile. "You should have done more research before coming here, Commander. You are about to learn a very important lesson about humanity. We do not give up easily, and we are much more dangerous than you think." He cut the transmission and looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. "All Earth Defense Forces move to intercept positions," Day commanded. "Make them think we are going to fight with our regular ships. Keep them focused on the inner system. We need to keep their attention away from Neptune until the Titan arrives." Small human ships began moving into position. They were destroyers and frigates, vessels that were tiny compared to the Valthian cruisers. Everyone knew these ships could not win a real fight. But they did not need to win. They just needed to be a distraction. Far out in the cold darkness, Hana watched her screens as system after system came online. The Titan was waking up, and soon the entire galaxy would see what humans could build when they were afraid and determined. Soon the Valthian would understand their mistake. The countdown continued. 4 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours. The sleeping giant was almost ready to open its eyes. Commander Lixtar watched the small human ships gather near Mars with amusement. His tactical officer had counted them. 43 vessels in total, the largest barely 800 meters long. They looked like toys compared to his fleet. This would be over quickly. "These humans are either very brave or very stupid," Lixtar said to his crew. "Prepare weapons. Target the largest ships first. We will give them one more chance to surrender before we destroy their pathetic fleet." His intelligence officer spoke up from her station. "Commander, our scans show these are the most advanced military vessels the humans possess. They use primitive fusion drives and basic kinetic weapons. Their shields are weak. One shot from our main cannons would tear through them." Lixtar nodded with satisfaction. This was going exactly as he expected. The Valthian Empire had conquered 40 systems over 3 centuries. They knew how to recognize a dangerous species, and humans were not dangerous. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 20 years ago by copying alien technology they found in some ruins on one of their moons. They were children playing with tools they barely understood. "Move the fleet forward," Lixtar ordered. "Take us to Earth orbit. Let us show these primitives what real power looks like." The 6 Valthian cruisers began moving deeper into the solar system, their massive engines glowing bright blue. They passed Mars without slowing down, barely acknowledging the human ships that were supposedly threatening them. On the Lunar Command Center, Lieutenant J watched the enemy fleet advance with growing tension. He knew the human ships near Mars could not stop them. Those ships were only there to make the Valthian think humans were desperate and foolish. The real defense was still warming up near Neptune. "How much longer?" Jay asked Yuna, who was monitoring the communications from the Neptune shipyards. 2 hours and 15 minutes, Yuna replied. Her voice was steady, but Jay could see her hands shaking slightly. "Chief Engineer Juan says they cannot go any faster without risking system failures." Jay took a deep breath. 2 hours felt like forever. The Valthian fleet would reach Earth orbit in 90 minutes at their current speed. They needed to slow them down somehow. "Send another diplomatic message," Jay said. "Tell them our president wants to negotiate surrender terms personally. Tell them we need more time to arrange a proper ceremony." Yuna nodded and began crafting the message. She had become very good at making excuses that sounded official and important, but meant nothing. It was a skill she never thought she would need. Deep in the Neptune facility, Engineer Hana was too busy to think about fear. Her screens showed dozens of systems all coming online at once. The gravitational displacement generators were her responsibility, and they were the most complex technology on the entire ship. They were also humanity's secret weapon. The technology came from 3 different alien sources. 20 years ago, humans had found ancient ruins on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Inside those ruins were pieces of technology from 3 different extinct civilizations. Human scientists had spent years studying those pieces. learning how they worked and then doing something no other species had done in thousands of years. They made the technology better. The gravitational displacement system could bend space around the Titan, creating a protective field that made conventional weapons almost useless, but it could also be used offensively, creating gravity wells that could trap enemy ships or crush them if needed. No other known species had ever combined these technologies in this way. Displacement generators at 70% power, Hana reported to Chief Engineer Juan. No anomalies detected. All systems operating within normal parameters. Juan checked his own screens and nodded with approval. Excellent work. Begin charging the main weapon systems. I want everything ready when we make our entrance. Around them, hundreds of engineers and technicians worked at their stations. The control room hummed with activity and nervous energy. Everyone knew what was at stake. If the Titan failed, if there was some flaw in their work, humanity would be enslaved or destroyed. But if it worked, if their 15 years of secret construction paid off, then Earth would be safe. Commander Sua sat in the captain's chair on the Titan's bridge and watched the countdown timer. She was younger than most ship commanders, only 38 years old, but she had trained her entire adult life for this moment. She had studied every battle strategy from human history and from the alien data they had recovered. She had run simulations thousands of times, but no simulation could prepare her for the reality of commanding a vessel this powerful. The Titan was not just a ship. It was a statement. It was humanity's way of saying they would not go quietly into the night. All stations report ready status, reported Lieutenant Tay from the tactical station. He was responsible for the weapon systems, and he looked both excited and terrified. Engine room reports ready for main. Thrust, another officer called out. Navigation has plotted. Our course to Earth, said a third voice. Sua acknowledged each report with a nod. She opened a communication channel to Chief Engineer Juan in the control room. Chief, are we ready to move? Juan's voice came back calm and confident. The Titan is ready, Commander. Give the word and we will show the galaxy what humans can build. Sua allowed herself a small smile. Begin acceleration. Take us to Earth. Full stealth approach until we are in visual range, then drop all concealment. I want them to see us. The massive ship began to move, slowly at first as the engines built up power. The Titan had been hidden behind Neptune for so long, using the planet's magnetic field and radiation to mask its presence from long-range sensors. The Valthene had no idea it existed. On the Lunar Command Center, Jay suddenly sat up straight. I am reading massive energy signatures from Neptune sector. The Titan is moving. Around him, the control room erupted in cheers. People hugged each other and shouted with relief. Their secret weapon was finally on its way, but the celebration was short-lived. Another alarm began beeping. The Valthene fleet is entering Earth orbit, an officer reported. They are taking positions above our major cities. They are powering up their weapons. Jay felt his stomach drop. The Titan was still too far away. It would take at least 90 minutes to reach Earth from Neptune, even at the speeds the massive ship could achieve. The Valthene could destroy entire cities in that time. On the Valthene flagship, the sensors officer noticed something strange. Commander, I am detecting an unusual reading from the outer system. Something large is moving inward from the direction of the 8th planet. Lixtar glanced at the display without much interest. How large? The officer checked her instruments twice before answering. Sir, the readings say it is 12 kilometers long. That cannot be right. That would make it bigger than a small moon. Lixtar laughed. Your instruments are malfunctioning. Nothing that size could be a functional ship. It must be an asteroid or a piece of debris. Ignore it and focus on the human fleet. But the officer kept watching her screens and the readings did not change. Whatever was out there, it was real, and it was moving toward them at increasing speed. Hana watched her displays as the Titan accelerated. The ship handled beautifully, responding to commands with surprising grace for something so massive. The gravitational systems kept the crew comfortable despite the acceleration. Everything was working exactly as designed. 1 hour until we reach visual range of Earth, the navigation officer announced. Commander Sua stood from her chair and looked around the bridge. Her crew was ready. The ship was ready. Now they just needed to make sure they arrived before the Valthene did something terrible. Prepare to drop stealth systems on my mark, Sua ordered. When we reveal ourselves, I want every sensor in the solar system to see us. I want the Valthene to understand exactly what they are facing. The Titan raced through space, a sleeping giant finally awakened and very, very angry. The moment came without warning. 1 second, the Valthene sensors showed empty space between Neptune and Earth. The next second, something appeared that made every alarm on every ship start screaming at once. Commander Lixtar was reviewing the surrender documents he would force the humans to sign when his tactical officer shouted, "Commander! Visual contact with unknown object. Distance 4 million kilometers and closing." Lixtar looked up at the main view screen, annoyed by the interruption. Then his 3 eyes went wide and his mouth fell open. He stood up slowly from his command chair, unable to believe what he was seeing. The ship was impossible. It had to be impossible. Nothing that large could move through space. Nothing that large could be built. His own flagship was the pride of the Valthene fleet at 800 meters, equipped with the most advanced technology the Empire possessed. What he was looking at made his ship seem like a small lifeboat next to an ocean liner. "Run full analysis," Lixtar said, his voice barely a whisper. "Tell me that is not real. Tell me it is a hologram or a trick." The sensors officer worked frantically at her console. Her hands were shaking. "Sir, scans confirm it is a solid object. Mass readings are off the scale. Power signatures are enormous. Sir, this is a functional warship. The humans built a functional warship that is 12 kilometers long." Around the bridge, the Valthene crew sat in stunned silence. They had conquered dozens of species. They had fought the Krell Confederation to a standstill. They had destroyed the Morgothi battle fleets. But they had never seen anything like this. The Titan emerged fully from its stealth approach, and every detail became visible. The hull was covered in dark gray armor that seemed to shift and move like it was alive. Weapon ports dotted the surface by the hundreds. Engine exhausts at the rear glowed with barely contained power. The ship looked predatory, like some ancient beast from mythology made real. On the Titan's bridge, Commander Sua watched the Valthene fleet's reaction with satisfaction. The alien ships had stopped moving. They were just floating there in Earth orbit, their crews probably trying to understand what they were seeing. "Open a channel to the Valthene flagship," Sua ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves properly." Lieutenant Tay activated the communication system. "Channel open, Commander." Sua kept her voice calm and professional. "Commander Lixitar of the Valthene Empire. This is Commander Sua of the Earth Defense Force vessel Titan. You have entered our space without permission and fired upon our satellites. This was a serious mistake." On the Valthene flagship, Lixtar barely heard the words. He was still staring at the massive ship that now filled his view screen. His science officer was babbling something about impossible engineering and theoretical limits. "How?" Lixtar finally managed to say. "How did you build this? Your species barely has space travel. Our intelligence said you were primitive, that you had no real military technology." Captain Day's voice joined the conversation from Mars Station. "Your intelligence was wrong, Commander. We have been building the Titan for 15 years in secret. We learned from every species that came before us. We took their technology and we made it better. That is what humans do. We learn, we adapt, and we build." Engineer Hana sat at her station in the Neptune control room, listening to the conversation with pride. She had spent 15 years of her life working on this ship. She had missed her daughter's childhood for this project. She had sacrificed everything to help build humanity's shield, and now the whole galaxy was going to see what they had created. Lixtar tried to gather his thoughts. He was a military commander with 300 years of experience. He had been in impossible situations before and found ways to survive. "This changes nothing," he said, trying to sound confident. "You have 1 ship. I have 6 cruisers and the backing of the entire Valthene Empire. Surrender now and we will show mercy." Commander Sua almost laughed at that. "You still do not understand, do you? Let me demonstrate." She nodded to Hana, who activated the gravitational displacement system from her remote station. The effect was immediate and terrifying. The 6 Valthene cruisers suddenly lurched backward, their engines screaming as they tried to maintain position. The Titan had created a localized gravity well, a miniature black hole effect that pulled everything nearby toward it. The Valthene ships found themselves being dragged through space against their will, their engines running at full power just to avoid being pulled closer. "What is happening?" Lixtar shouted at his engineering crew. "Why are we moving backward?" "The human ship is generating a gravitational field," his science officer reported, her voice high with panic. "It is pulling us in. Our engines cannot overcome it. Commander, this is technology we have never encountered before. Sua let them struggle for a full minute before reducing the field's intensity. The Valthine ship stopped moving backward but still could not move forward. They were trapped, held in place by invisible forces they could not fight. That was just a small demonstration, Sua said over the open channel. The Titan has weapons you cannot imagine. We could destroy your entire fleet in minutes, but we are not going to do that. Do you know why? Lixtar did not answer. He was too busy trying to understand how his perfect invasion had turned into a nightmare. Because we are better than you, Sua continued. You came here to conquer us, to make us slaves. We could do the same to you right now. But we will not. We will let you leave. We will let you go home and tell your empire what you saw here. Tell them that Earth is protected. Tell them that humans are not prey. Lieutenant J, watching from the Lunar Command Center, felt tears in his eyes. He had been so afraid when the alien fleet arrived. Now he felt nothing but pride in what his species had achieved. The Valthine tactical officer spoke urgently to Lixtar. Commander, our weapons cannot lock onto the human ship. The gravitational field is bending space around it. Our targeting systems cannot get a solution. Even if we could fire, I do not think our weapons would penetrate that armor. Lixtar knew when he was beaten. He had lived 300 years by knowing when to fight and when to retreat. This was a time to retreat. Human commander, he said slowly, we understand your message. But you must understand what you have done. When word of this ship spreads, every empire in the galaxy will see Earth as a threat. They will come for you. Sua's response was immediate. Let them come. Let them all see what happens when they underestimate humanity. We did not ask to be part of this galactic community. We did not ask for you to invade our home. But now that we are here, now that you know we exist, we will not hide. We will not bow. We will stand as equals, or we will stand alone. Day added from Mars Station. Tell your empire something else, Commander. Tell them the Titan is not the only ship we are building. Tell them this is just the beginning. That was not entirely true. The Titan had taken every resource Earth could spare for 15 years. Building another would take decades. But Lixtar did not need to know that. Fear would protect Earth better than weapons. The gravitational field released fully and the Valthine ships were suddenly free. Their engines, still running at full power, sent them shooting backward away from Earth. Lixtar did not try to recover his dignity. He ordered his fleet to retreat at maximum speed. As they ran, every sensor on every ship recorded everything they could about the Titan. The data would be analyzed by the best scientists in the Empire. Sua watched them go with mixed feelings. They had won without firing a shot, which was the best possible outcome. But she knew Lixtar was right about one thing. Word would spread. The galaxy would know about the Titan. Earth would never be able to hide again. Take us into Earth orbit, Sua ordered. Nice and slow. Let everyone see us. Let our own people know they are protected. The Titan moved majestically through space, passing the moon, approaching the blue and green planet that had built it. Below, billions of humans looked up and saw their guardian for the first time. The secret was out. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy in the loudest way possible. The footage spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. The Valthine had broadcast everything during their encounter with the Titan. Every moment of their humiliation, every second of their terror, had been transmitted back to their empire for analysis. But the transmission had been intercepted by dozens of other species who monitored Valthine military channels. Within 3 days, every major civilization in known space had seen the human battleship. Within a week, the debate began. Was it real? Could a species so young really build something so advanced? The Valthine insisted it was true, but many did not believe them. Commander Lixtar arrived home to find himself the center of a political storm. The Valthine High Council demanded explanations. How could he retreat from primitives? How could he allow the Empire to be embarrassed? Lixtar showed them the data, the sensor readings, the visual recordings. He showed them what the Titan could do. The council fell silent as they watched. Then they began asking different questions. How could humans build this? Where did they get the technology? What else might they have hidden? On Earth, the reaction was different. When the world governments finally revealed the Titan's existence to the public, people responded with shock, pride, and fear. For 15 years, trillions of dollars had been secretly diverted to the Neptune shipyards. People had wondered where the money went. Now they knew. Captain Day, now promoted to Admiral, sat in a conference room with Earth's leaders. They were discussing what came next. The Titan had bought them time and respect, but it had also painted a target on humanity's back. We are receiving communication requests from 40 different species, reported Diplomatic Officer Nari. She had been chosen to lead Earth's new diplomatic corps because of her experience in tense negotiations. Some want to establish trade agreements. Some want defensive pacts. Some are demanding we share our technology. What about hostile responses? Asked the Earth Federation president. Nari pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked potential threats. The Krell Confederation has increased military activity near our sector. The Morgothi clans are watching us carefully, but so far no direct threats. I think they are waiting to see what we do next. Admiral Day understood the situation perfectly. The galaxy was like a group of predators who had just discovered a new animal in their territory. They were trying to decide if humans were dangerous prey or dangerous competitors. The answer to that question would determine Earth's future. We need to build more ships, Day said firmly. The Titan bought us respect, but one ship is not enough to protect an entire planet. We do not have the resources, replied the Minister of Resources. The Titan took everything we had. Building another would bankrupt us. Then we need allies, Nari suggested. We need to make friends with some of these species. Form a coalition that can help defend us. It was the beginning of a new era for humanity. They could not hide anymore. They had to learn to live in a galaxy full of other species, some friendly, some hostile, all watching them carefully. Commander Sua found herself in an unexpected role. Other species wanted to meet the captain who commanded the Titan, who had faced down an empire without firing a shot. She received invitations to diplomatic functions, requests for interviews, even offers of positions in alien fleets. She turned down most of them, but she accepted a few that could help Earth. She visited the Krell Confederation homeworld and spoke to their military council. The Krell were warriors, and they respected strength. Sua described the Titan honestly, neither exaggerating nor downplaying its capabilities. The Krell appreciated the honesty. Your species is young but capable, the Krell Fleetmaster told her. We will watch your progress with interest. Perhaps one day we will fight alongside you rather than against you. It was not a promise of alliance, but it was better than a promise of war. Sua considered it a diplomatic victory. Meanwhile, Engineer Hana returned to work at the Neptune shipyards. The facility was no longer secret, so security was increased dramatically. Now that everyone knew the Titan existed, there was concern that enemies might try to sabotage future construction. Hana led a team working on improvements to the Titan's systems based on performance data from the encounter with the Valthene. They had learned valuable lessons. The gravitational displacement system worked perfectly, but it consumed enormous amounts of power. They needed to make it more efficient. She also began preliminary designs for a new class of ships. Not something as large as the Titan, but smaller, faster vessels that could be built more quickly. If Earth was going to protect itself, it needed a real fleet, not just one giant battleship. Science Officer Wu, who had monitored the Valthene communications during the encounter, was assigned to a new intelligence division. His job was to analyze all the data Earth was now receiving from the galaxy. Every species was suddenly willing to share information, wanting to curry favor with the humans who built the impossible ship. Wu discovered fascinating things. The technology humans had found in the Europa ruins came from 3 extinct civilizations. 2 of those civilizations had been destroyed by the Valthene Empire. The 3rd had been wiped out by the Morgothi clans. Both empires had kept the ruins secret, not wanting others to learn from them. But humans had found the ruins first and learned the lessons. The extinct civilizations had not combined their technologies. They had kept them separate, specialized. Humans had done what no other species thought to do. They took pieces from different puzzles and made them fit together. That is humanity's real advantage, Wu reported to Admiral Day. We are integrators. We take ideas from everywhere and combine them in new ways. The Valthene have more advanced weapons than us in some areas. The Krell have better engines. The Morgothi have superior sensors, but we are the only ones who thought to put all of it together. Day nodded thoughtfully. Make sure that information stays classified. If the other species realize our secret, they will start doing the same thing. We need to maintain our advantage. 3 months after the Valthene encounter, Earth received its first formal diplomatic visitor. The Centauri Coalition, A group of smaller species who had banded together for protection against larger empires sent an ambassador. They proposed a mutual defense pact. Nari met with the Centauri ambassador in Geneva. The ambassador was a small crystalline being who communicated through colored light patterns that were translated into speech. "We have watched your species with great interest," the Centauri said. "You defeated the Valthine without violence. You showed strength but also restraint. These are rare qualities in the galaxy." "What are you proposing?" Nari asked carefully. "A partnership. We cannot build ships like your Titan. But we have resources, ancient knowledge, and connections throughout the galaxy. Together we could create something powerful. A coalition based not on conquest but on mutual protection." It was the first real alliance offer Earth had received, and Nari knew it was important. Small steps like this could eventually lead to true galactic acceptance. Back on Earth, a young woman named Rin stood in line at the Space Academy entrance. She was 18 years old, and she had decided on her career path the moment she saw the Titan pass overhead during its ceremonial tour of human space. She was going to serve on that ship, or on whatever came after it. Thousands of young people had the same dream. Academy applications had increased by 300%. Everyone wanted to be part of humanity's future among the stars. In a secret facility on Europa, Chief Engineer Juan reviewed plans that would remain classified for years. The Titan had proven that humans could compete with ancient empires. Now they needed to stay ahead. The designs on his screen showed concepts that pushed even further beyond known technology, but Juan knew the truth that no one wanted to admit publicly. The Titan was partly luck. The ruins on Europa could have been discovered by anyone. If the Valthine or Morgathi had found them first, Earth would be enslaved right now. Humanity needed to develop its own innovations, not just copy and improve alien technology. They needed to become true equals, not just clever students. Admiral Day understood this too. In his office overlooking the Pacific Ocean, he looked at reports from across the solar system. Humans were expanding faster than ever. Mining operations on asteroids, colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter, research stations studying alien artifacts. The Titan had given them time and space to grow. Now they had to use it wisely. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see if humanity was a one-hit wonder or if they were truly ready to take their place among the stars. 6 months after the Valthine encounter, the galaxy looked different. Not physically, but politically. The balance of power that had existed for centuries was shifting, and Earth sat at the center of that shift. Admiral Day walked through the halls of the New Earth Embassy on Krell Prime. It was strange being here, on an alien world, representing his species as an equal. The Krell had been spacefaring for 3,000 years. Humans had barely managed 3 decades, yet here he was, negotiating trade agreements and defense treaties. The Krell Fleet Master, a massive being covered in natural armor plates, greeted Day with what passed for a smile among his species. "Admiral, we have reviewed your proposal for joint military exercises. The Council approves. It will be interesting to see how your Titan performs against our battle groups." Day returned the smile. "I am sure both sides will learn valuable lessons. That is the point of exercises, after all." What neither of them said out loud was the real purpose of these exercises. The Krell wanted to study the Titan's capabilities more closely. Earth wanted to learn from the Krell's 3,000 years of military experience. Both sides would benefit, but both were also cautious. Allies today could be enemies tomorrow. Commander Sua prepared the Titan for its first joint operation with an alien fleet. The exercises would take place in neutral space, away from any settled systems. Her crew was nervous but excited. They had trained against simulations of alien tactics, but this would be their first real test against experienced warriors. Lieutenant Tay ran drills on the weapon systems constantly. He wanted every gunner, every targeting officer to be perfect. The Krell were watching, and so was the rest of the galaxy. Any sign of weakness would be noticed and remembered. "We are representing all of humanity," Sua reminded her crew during a briefing. "Every action we take, every decision we make will be analyzed by dozens of species. We need to be professional, competent, and respectful, but we also need to show that we belong here." Back on Earth, the political landscape was changing just as dramatically. The revelation of the Titan had forced governments to be more transparent. People demanded to know what else had been kept secret. They wanted a voice in how Earth interacted with the galaxy. Diplomatic Officer Nari found herself at the center of this new era. She had established formal relations with 17 different species. Some were small coalitions looking for protection. Others were ancient empires curious about the newcomers. Each required a different approach, different cultural understanding. The Centauri coalition had become Earth's closest ally. Their ambassador, whose name translated roughly as bright morning light, worked closely with Nari to navigate galactic politics. The Centauri had experience that humans lacked. They understood the unspoken rules, the subtle power dynamics. The Morgathi are testing you, Bright Morning Light explained during one meeting. They send ships to the edge of your territory, just close enough to be noticed but not close enough to be threatening. They want to see how you respond. What should we do? Nari asked. Show presence but not aggression. Send patrol ships to shadow theirs. Let them know you see them but do not escalate. The Morgathi respect strength but they also respect patience. They want to know if you are hot-blooded warriors or cold-blooded strategists. Nari followed the advice and it worked. The Morgathi stopped their testing runs and sent an official communication requesting a formal meeting. It was progress, slow but real. Engineer Hana's life had changed in ways she never expected. She was now one of the most famous humans in the galaxy. Her face appeared on news broadcasts across dozens of worlds. Other species wanted to know about the engineer who helped build the impossible ship. But fame did not interest Hana much. What interested her was the work. She had started designing a new class of ships called Guardians. They would be much smaller than the Titan, only 2 kilometers long, but they would incorporate all the lessons learned from the flagship. Earth needed a fleet and she was going to help build it. The first Guardian was already under construction at the Neptune shipyards. It would take 5 years to complete, much faster than the Titan's 15-year construction time. Hana had streamlined the process, made it more efficient. If everything went well, Earth could build 1 Guardian every 5 years. In 50 years, they would have a real defensive fleet. Lieutenant J had been promoted to captain and given command of one of Earth's new patrol cruisers. These were much smaller than the Titan, designed for speed and reconnaissance rather than overwhelming firepower. His job was to monitor the edge of human territory and report any unusual activity. It was during one of these patrol missions that J made an unexpected discovery. His sensors detected a derelict ship drifting in deep space, far from any settled system. The ship was ancient, its design unlike anything in the database. Unknown vessel, this is Earth Patrol Ship Discovery requesting identification. J broadcast on all frequencies. No response. The ship appeared dead, its power systems inactive. But J had learned to be careful. He called for backup and approached slowly. What they found inside would change everything again. The ship was from another extinct civilization, one that had disappeared 5,000 years ago. And in its cargo hold were artifacts, technology, and most importantly, star maps showing locations of other ruins scattered across the galaxy. J immediately transmitted his findings to Earth Command. Admiral Day received the report and understood the implications. If humans could find more ruins, study more extinct civilizations, they could accelerate their technological development dramatically. They could move from being students of alien technology to innovators in their own right. On Mars Station, where Captain Day had first faced the Valthene threat, a memorial was being built. It honored the moment when humanity stood up to an empire and won without firing a shot. But it also served as a reminder of what could have happened if they had not been prepared. Young Rin, now a cadet at the Space Academy, visited the memorial during a training exercise. She read the names of everyone who had worked on the Titan project in secret. Engineers, scientists, construction workers who had spent 15 years of their lives building a ship they hoped would never be needed. One day, I will serve on a ship like that, Rin said to her friend Bora, who was training to be a navigator. Bora nodded. The galaxy is so much bigger than we imagined. There is so much to explore, so many species to meet. I want to be part of that. It was a common sentiment among young people. The older generation had built the Titan out of fear. The new generation wanted to build bridges instead of battleships. Both were necessary. Both were important. Science Officer Wu had been analyzing data from the derelict ship J discovered. The star map showed the locations of 17 different ancient ruins, none of which had been discovered by modern civilizations. If Earth moved quickly, they could claim those sites before anyone else found them. We need to organize expeditions immediately, Wu reported to Admiral Day. Every site could contain technology or knowledge that advances us decades or centuries. Day approved the expeditions, but with strict security. The last thing Earth needed was to start a conflict over ancient ruins. They would approach each site carefully, document everything, and share selected findings with their allies. The Valthene Empire, meanwhile, had not forgotten about Earth. Commander Lixitar had been demoted but not dismissed. He still commanded a small patrol fleet, and he spent his time studying everything known about humans. He had learned to respect them, to fear them even, but he also wondered if their strength was all concentrated in that one massive ship. If we could separate the Titan from Earth, Lixitar said to his remaining loyal officers, if we could force it to respond to a crisis far away, Earth would be vulnerable. It was a dangerous thought, and Lixitar knew better than to act on it without approval from the High Council. But he filed the strategy away in his mind. The Empire had a long memory and infinite patience. Commander Sua knew enemies like Lixitar were out there, planning and plotting. That was why she pushed her crew to improve constantly. The Titan was powerful, but it was not invincible. Complacency would be their downfall. During the joint exercises with the Krell, the Titan performed admirably. It demonstrated maneuvers that should have been impossible for a ship its size. The gravitational displacement system allowed it to change direction faster than anything the Krell had ever seen. Their weapons proved largely ineffective against the Titan's shields, but the Krell also taught humans valuable lessons. Their tactics were refined over millennia of warfare. They showed Sua how to coordinate with smaller ships, how to use the Titan as a mobile fortress that other vessels could rally around. You have built something remarkable, the Krell fleet master told Sua after the exercises. But a ship is only as good as its crew and its allies. Remember that. Back on Earth, Chief Engineer Juan stood in a hidden laboratory on Europa. The facility was built directly into the ancient ruins, where humans had first discovered alien technology. He was working on something that would remain secret for many years. The project was called Horizon. It was not a ship or a weapon. It was an engine, a revolutionary propulsion system that could theoretically allow travel across the entire galaxy in weeks instead of years. The technology,